Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today pag-uusapan natin ang theory ni Erikson. So I guess most of you are familiar with the theory of Sigmund Freud, psychoanalysis, and anong relationship niya doon sa theory ni Erikson, no? Yung kanyang mga psychosocial stages. So I suggest that before you watch this video, first familiarize yourself with the theory of Freud because the theory of Erikson ay actually isa itong extension ng theory ni Freud. And if you remember Freud's psychosexual stages, we have five: oral, anal, phallic, latency, and genital. On the other hand, itong theory ni Erikson has eight stages, no? And each stage has a certain crisis that you have to resolve or overcome in a healthy manner in order for you to develop in a healthy way. All right. So before we take a look into the different stages of Erikson's theory, first let's talk about the nature, no, of his theory. What are his assumptions? So basically, um, like what I mentioned earlier, he was influenced by Freud, and his theory is an extension of Freud's theory. But instead of focusing on psychosexual development, no? Erikson, on the other hand, focused on psychosocial development. So in other words, medyo iba yung pananaw niya compared kay Sigmund Freud, no? At yung pananaw niya ay mas malawak, mas expansive. So tinitingnan niya yung hindi lang yung childhood at yung adolescence, but also pati yung adulthood ng isang tao. Kasi sa theory ni Freud, huminto yung usapan sa genital stage, which is around adolescence. Pero hindi na na-explain in great detail yung adulthood, no? So diyan nag-extend yung theory ni Erikson by explaining to us about the different crises that we go through once we reach adolescence, early, middle, and even late adulthood. So the first stage is what we call trust versus mistrust. And sa first stage, the questions that infants try to answer is, can I trust the world? No? Pwede ba ako magtiwala sa mundo? So why do they ask a question like that? Kasi yung first stage, this is the stage wherein the mother plays a very important role in the psychological development of the person, of the infant. So this is called trust versus mistrust stage because if the child is raised well by the mother, so in other words, kapag may pangangailangan siya, natutugunan siya nung magulang niya, kung hindi man mother, perhaps a mother figure to the child will learn to trust the world. Trust because you will realize that even though there are painful experiences and painful circumstances, the infants will learn, no? They will expect that future distresses or problems will meet with satisfactory outcomes. In other words, the children will develop the mindset that even if I struggle in the future, I will be able to make my way through this. Okay? So that's why the stage of trust is very important. Because some children who were not raised well by their parents, particularly in stage 1, develop what we call mistrust. So minsan nagiging paranoid o kaya naman hindi nagtitiwala sa ibang tao. They find it difficult to confide in others. Well, baka kasi may origin yan sa upbringing niya. What if this person was not raised well by his or her own parents? So, diyan manggagaling yung reasoning na magulang ko nga hindi ako inalagaan, magtitiwala pa ba ako sa'yo na hindi ko kaano-ano? That's why the very first stage is, for me, a very crucial stage. Bukod sa siya yung una, dito mo kasi mabibuild yung tiwala ng tao sa mundo. No? Can I trust the world or not? Is the world a good place to live in? But so in other words, kailangan lamang yung trust over sa mistrust, no? Pero we are not saying na completely tanggalin yung mistrust because too much trust will make the person gullible o kaya uto-uto. So in all the stages, no, kailangan ko ano yung nasa left, yung positive quality, yun dapat yung mananaig. Siya dapat yung lamang in order for you to achieve healthy development, pero dapat yung nasa right, yung hindi magandang characteristic, dapat meron pa rin pero konti lang. The goal is not to eliminate it, but instead for the positive quality, no? para siya yung mas lamang compared kay negative quality. Okay. So the next stage is autonomy versus shame and doubt. And in this stage, the child learns to walk, learns to talk, natututo siyang gumalaw sa sarili niya, tumatayo sa sarili niyang paa, from crawling, now starting to learn how to walk, no? And this stage is very, ano no, it's full of challenging experiences, especially kapag yung bata nag-attempt na tumayo tapos bigla siyang madadapa o kaya babagsak, no? So, an some for example, mga first time parents, no, when they raise their first kid na hindi pa sila masyadong familiar with, or hindi pa sila masyadong comfortable with parenting, tapos nadapa yung kanilang first kid, no? So, lagi nilang sinusuportahan like, "Kawawa ka naman, itatayo kita." 'No? Wala namang masama dun, however, if nasobrahan, 'no, if there's too much, parang na-spoil yung bata sa support na binibigay ng magulang, the child may experience what we call shame and doubt. In other words, if the child learns that every time I will fall, my parents will be there to quote, ayusin yung mga ano 'no, parang to clean up my mess. So, the child will be dependent sa kanyang mga magulang. That for example, yung project sa school hindi ko aayusin, anyway nandiyan naman yung magulang ko para ayusin, eh, 'no? O kaya naman, they will develop shame, nahihiya sila to do things or their own without the approval of their parents. Gano'n din sa doubt. No? For example, sa recitation, there are some people who will doubt their answers bago pa man nila sabihin. For example, "Sir, pwedeng try lang." No? Hindi pa naman mali yung sagot pero sinasabi na nila agad na mali sila. Or kapag may mga pagkakataon na hindi ka confident, for example, public speaking, tapos akala mo na agad mali or pangit yung speech mo. So, nandun either yung shame o yung doubt. That's why parents also need to, ano no, allow their children to learn on their own para ma-develop yung autonomy, no? A sense of self-control that even without the parents, you can manage on your own. Pero kailangan, like what I told you earlier, may konting shame and doubt, no? Yung for example, yung konting hiya ay mahalaga rin, no? Paano kunyari masyado kang autonomous na hindi ka nagpapaalam tapos bumisita ka, may kung ano-ano kang ginagawa like kumukuha ka ng malaking amount ng pagkain, no? O kaya nasa classroom nag-CR ka ng walang paalam sa teacher, there should also be a little amount of shame and doubt, no? So hindi lang puro autonomy, no? May konting shame and doubt din for a healthy development. The next stage is initiative guilt, no? And what is in the initiative guilt stage? Initiative means to pursue a certain goal. Like I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be an engineer, I want to do this and that. No? However, no, amidst sa mga goals ng bata na sa stage na 'to nafo-form kung ano yung gusto niyang, career in the future, there should be, no, a healthy amount of guilt at the same time for the child to learn that there are things or goals that you are not supposed to pursue. For example, parallel kasi ito sa phallic stage ni Freud, the third stage kung saan nade-develop ang superego. So mahalaga yung role ng napapagalitan ng parents if you're doing something bad so that you will not, for example, do illegal actions or mga inappropriate actions such as watching TV shows or series with adult scenes, no? So nagkaroon ka ng initiative na I want to watch a movie pero hindi pala para sa iyo 'yon, no? So you should also have a healthy amount of guilt for you to learn, no, kung ano ba yung mga behavior or mga goal na hindi tamang gawin. Now, for example, what if you had the initiative to pursue a goal wherein you will bully a classmate for you to get his or her money? No? Nandun nga yung initiative pero parang walang guilt. That's why guilt, although it may sound negative, sa healthy level ay kailangan din yan. So, dapat lamang sa initiative but not completely walang guilt. Just like in the first two stages. Right. The next one is industry versus inferiority, the counterpart of Sigmund Freud's latency stage, wherein the child is now busy with schooling o baka grade school or elementary yung bata nito, no? So industry is hard work, sipag, no? If the child did something good in school, no, they deserve to be praised, to be commended, no, to be complimented for something they have done, like magaling sa recitation, maganda yung drawing, o kaya nagpasa ng assignment para ma-develop yung kanilang industriousness. However, if kailangan yung inferiority makontrol. Kasi inferiority may come from, for example, comparison among siblings or comparison sa mga kamag-anak or sa mga classmate, saying to a kid that a classmate ay mas magaling compared sa kanya may affect or damage his or her self-image or self-esteem. That's why inferiority sa healthy na level ay nakaka-motivate. Kung kaya nila, kakayanin ko rin. But too much inferiority might affect your self-esteem and your self-efficacy. Because what if your parents tell you all the time that this person is always better than you? No? So baka mawala na si industry, puro inferiority na lang yung manaig doon sa individual. Diba? So that's the fourth stage. No? So far, medyo parallel pa kay Freud. 'Di ba? Extended lang yung pananaw. Ngayon po, fifth stage is identity versus identity confusion. Now we can see Erikson's contributions. So sa fifth stage, which is a very important stage, na form yung ating identity. Adolescence ito eh. Yan, for Erikson, most scholars would say, most books would say that this is the most important stage wherein you discover your own sexual, ideological, kunyari anong paniniwalaan mong religion or ano yung mga political beliefs mo or ano yung mga stand mo sa mga moral issues like political dynasty o kaya naman ay death penalty o kaya naman ay corruption, o kaya naman ay same-sex marriage. So what's your stand sa mga ganon? And occupational identities. So ano yung gusto mong maging, no? Identity confusion is a syndrome wherein you experience the following: inability to establish intimacy. For example, it's hard for you to determine kung kanino mo ba gusto talagang makipag-partner. No, it may be a product, no, of being confused about your identity. You do not know kung kanino ka ma-attract, so you're having difficulties with this one. Sense of urgency, or parang palagi ka nagmamadali, like what if your classmates nakapili na sila ng course at school nila pero ikaw ay nahihirapan pa rin. Lack of concentration, or a feeling of rejection of family and community standards. In other words, this might explain, for example, rebellious behavior, no, especially among teenagers. So, dito lagi ko sinisingit sa discussion, for example, yung role ng senior high school in the personality development of an individual. So, you get to figure out so kung anong career yung pwede sa'yo by choosing your, for example, anong strand, no, yung susundin mo, which will eventually lead to anong course yung iti-take mo. So the advantage of this is that you get to test the waters first, no, before you dive doon sa career na napili mo. Yan. So but kumbaga it gives you some time to figure out what you really want. Unlike during my time, no, after fourth year high school, you immediately go to college. Paano kung hindi mo pala gusto yung napili mong career? What if yung gusto mo talaga is malayo from what you want? No? So it might cause some problems along the way. Okay, so aside from that, in this stage, we develop what we call fidelity, or the faith in your belief. So if once you have established your identity, you will be able to say that I have my own belief, no? Even though may belief yung parents mo or yung relatives mo, meron kang confidence about your own ideologies. No? So nandiyan yung parental guidance, but you're also confident sa yung mga sariling religious, political, and social ideologies. Okay, so that's for the fifth stage. Third to the last, stage six, early adulthood, intimacy versus isolation. When we say intimacy, it's about fusing yourself with another person without the fear of losing your identity. That's why it's important for you to go through stage 5 first para ma-prepare ka for stage 6. No? So intimacy is not just about selecting a partner, but contrary to what most will say, intimacy is also about being faithful to your chosen career track or to your calling. For example, some people will choose not to marry, but instead they follow their dream to become a, for example, a priest or a nun. Hindi lang yon, no? For example, a person who is strongly committed their their mission or calling. Kunyari, meron siyang calling sa public service. Meron siyang calling sa charity. No? Meron siyang calling sa isang bagay like teaching or kung ano man yan. No? So, that's also a form of intimacy. Some people who have difficulties in establishing this may experience isolation, or they do not want to share true intimacy or connection, hindi lang with a partner, but perhaps they're also having difficulties in being faithful or loyal to a certain job or career na ayaw nila ibigay totally yung sarili nila, no, doon sa kanilang napiling career track, if hindi man sa relationship yung crisis na din pinagdadaanan ng tao, no? The stage, seventh stage, no, second to the last, generativity versus stagnation. When we say generativity, this is about passing on your knowledge to the younger generation. So ang mahalaga kasi dito yung parenting, eh, no? This is no longer about you, this is now about the younger generation. So dati nagiging proud ka kapag honor ka sa school or mataas yung grades mo, but in stage number 7, now you become proud kapag ang nakaka-achieve na yung mga anak mo. But if you chose not to have kids, no, for example, it's okay. You can still show generativity sa trabaho, halimbawa, by passing on your knowledge to the younger generation, or ikaw yung nagiging mentor nila. For example, a teacher passing on his knowledge about his course, no, sa kanyang mga students. Some individuals may experience stagnation kasi madamot sila, no? They're becoming too self-absorbed na parang ayaw nila na mas magaling yung mga anak nila sa kanila or mas magaling yung mga estudyante nila. So they choose not to share their talents, their abilities at pinagdadamot nila because they are too self-absorbed. That's what we call stagnation. Usually sa mga ano yan eh, middle adults na ayaw mag-share ng knowledge nila. That is the term for it, according to Erikson. And then finally, in the last stage, we have integrity despair. When we say that you have integrity, you have the ability to hold your sense of I-ness or identity and the feeling of wholeness and coherence. So, in the tail end of your life, do you have integrity to say that you have done everything that you wanted to, no? And you're happy, you're already contented. But some people experience despair or hopelessness, no? So sa despair, this is a feeling of parang marami kang regrets. Like, I wish when I was younger, I did this. I wish I had the chance to pursue this. I wish when I had the opportunity to do this, I followed, I, sana ginawa ko na lang. No? So that is despair instead of integrity. Yeah. So as you can see, no, from stage 1 to stage 8, there is a relationship among them. Now, if you'd had difficulties in earlier stages, pwede siya mag-domino effect to the last stage. No? So I hope that you are in an environment that will help you grow, no, and flourish and help you to successfully resolve the different crises that you are going through in each psychosocial stage. And here is a summary slide of the 8 stages of development together with the crisis that we face in each stage. So that is it for this discussion. I hope that you learned something, and I will see you next time for another discussion. Good luck.